Hi and welcome to ReaperTV. In this video I'm going to demonstrate and take a first look at the new Fabfilter Pro-R Reverb plugin. We're going to take a look at the interface, how it all works, the different tools and functions this offers us, and get a good idea of what this new plugin provides you. So let's take a look at all that now. So to start off with, let's take a look at what the interface provides us with. As you can see, everything is laid out quite clean and simple, and if you've ever used a Fabfilter plugin before, then you're probably going to find this is very familiar to you, a very similar style. So what we have is 7 controls across the top that allow us to shape the way that the reverb sounds. We've got brightness, character, distance, the actual size of the reverb that we want to work with from a very small room right the way up to cathedral. And the nice thing with this is completely stepless, so we don't have to choose one of those. We can easily slide between 2 different sizes and get the exact type of reverb that we want. We can then enhance that and change it based upon the decay rate, and we can enhance, we can boost it, we can cut it back, we can do a lot with that. We've then got the stereo width, which allows us to take it to a mono signal or a full spacious width signal that allows us to take it beyond 100% and push it over to 110% so we can get even more width than we naturally would. And finally we have the mix control, which allows us to take the reverb signal, the affected reverb sound, and mix that with the original source. So we can easily put this up to 100% and we only hear the reverb. We can then choose to mix that back in if we're using a sidechain or a dedicated bus. So that gives us a great way of being able to do that. Or we can, like I say, directly inside the plugin itself, control the amount of mix with the original source signal and the reverb signal. Below that, we've then got the decay rate EQ and the post EQ. But as you can see at the moment, we've got a slight EQ, that's the default EQ curve applied to it. And we'll take a look at changing this ourselves further on in the video. But what this allows us to do very quickly and easily is shape the way that the actual reverb is EQ'd independent of the actual source, which is a really good way of being able to shape that. So let's just say, for example, you want to cut any low end frequency off there and just sort of emphasize the high end frequency so you can control exactly how that reverb affects the original source material. Then you can do that by using the decay rate EQ. Really cool. At the bottom, we've got the option to MIDI learn. We've got a pre-delay option. We can choose how the actual plugin itself is going to operate, and we can also control the input and the output volumes. So what I've done is I've created a dedicated bus just for the reverb, and at the moment all I've got going through that is the snare top. So if we take a listen to it, you can hear the snare completely unaffected just going through. So we'll take the mix right the way down, so none of this is going to affect the sound on this. So let's take a listen to that. So as you can see, we've just got that going through this. So if we start to introduce some of that, let's just take the mix and put that to 100% wet. So in other words, we're only now listening to the reverb affected audio. So let's take a listen to that now. And as you can hear, you can quickly see that we've got a nice set of reverb going through there. We've got it going through a medium-sized room, and we've set some basic parameters up on there. So let's go through and audition these different controls and take a listen to what they do. To start off with, we'll go through the space because that's the one that's going to give us the most noticeable immediate effect. And you can hear right the way from the small room up to the cathedral the sound that this actually provides us with. So let's take that back. Let's run the audio through this now, and we'll adjust that. So let's take a listen. So you can see there's quite a large array of sounds that we've got in there. At the middle, you can see it's given us exactly how long that reverb is going to be. We've got 200 milliseconds, for example, there, and as we slide it up through, you can see that adjusts accordingly. This will also be affected by the decay rate. So you'll see that at the moment that's set to 100%, so it's set to the default value. But if we pull that out to the left-hand side, you can see we shorten that decay rate, or we take it to the right-hand side, and we then increase that decay rate. So you can see that we can now boost that, and this will always show the end result of the combination between the main space and the decay rate. So you always know that you're working with the actual value you need to work with in that display mode. If you want to reset any of these controls, you can simply hold the command key on the keyboard, click, and that'll automatically reset it back to its default point. So that's quite nice. So you can see we've got that. So let's just push that up to around the sort of large size room there, or the medium size room, and let's take a look at what the brightness and the darkness does. Now this is a great way of controlling exactly how realistic you want your reverb to sound. So when we take it up to the brighter side, you're going to get a much snappier, more high end in your reverb, and conversely if you go to the darker side, you're going to get a duller, more muffled sound. So you can control that. So let's take a listen again. So again, as you can tell, it really does have quite an effect on the audio you're running through it. Let's go through the character now. As you can see, we've got a clean, lively, and we've got chorus. So once we move over to the right hand side and start to get to that chorus, we start to get some modulation in the actual reverb itself. So let's just put that back to clean so we can listen to that, and we'll scan through and take a listen to what this does. Now obviously with a lot of these different controls, it's dependent upon the type of instrument or audio you're running through this filter or this plugin. So don't take that as indicative exactly what it's like. We'll take a listen on a guitar later on so we can see what it does to other instruments. But again, we've got that control, and we can do control and click to reset that. The distance then is going to go through and show us how it would be if this reverb is bouncing back, so it's coming closer to us. We've got a quicker reflection or more distant reflection, so the instrument is further away from us or closer to us. So let's run that. So you can see we can very quickly create something that has a very quick attack, or we can have something that has a lot more delay to it, a lot more reverb to it, to make it sound like it's much farther away and it's taking its time to reverberate around the room before it gets to us. As we've already seen the decay rate, I'm going to skip past that, and then we're going to take a look at the mono and the spacious, so the stereo width. So let's again run that. So you can see we really can't control how wide that frequency is going to be, how wide the sound is going to be. So we can again take that to 100% or beyond to 110%. And finally we have the mix option. So at the moment we're listening to this 100% wet, so we're only listening to the reverb. We're not listening to any of the original source. So let's mix that back in and take a listen. So all in all, some nice control over this. Like I say, we've also got the presets which we can use as a starting point, and we can then still come through and control the actual decay rate and the post EQ. So let's take a listen to some of that now. Let's just put this through it, let's tweak it to get somewhere we like it, and then let's just take a look at what we can do with the decay rate EQ and the post EQ. Okay, I've gone through and roughly dialed in the basics of a reverb that I like. So let's take a listen to that, and then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go through and we'll look at the EQ section and how we can use that to shape the sound even further. So this is what we're starting off with. Now remember, this is completely 100% wet, so we are only listening to the reverb. If I mix that back in so you can listen to what it's like where we've got more of the original source, you can see it's not quite so evident and it sounds a lot better. So listen. So you can see when we mix it back in, we get a nice sort of combination of the two. But let's put that back up to 100% wet a second. Now what I'm going to do is, the blue line is the decay rate EQ. So we can control the actual sound of the decay. And then we've got the post EQ, which is the yellow line. So by doing that, Let's start off by doing something simple. Let's just play that back and let's start to shape that. Let's cut the low end out of it and let's boost the high end ever so slightly so we can make sure that we don't end up with any low frequencies muddying up our mix. So let's take a listen. So hopefully what you can hear there is once we start to put this low shelf in there, we dip out and take out all that low end frequency of the reverb, and we then emphasize the high end frequency. So everything above 2.2 hertz and anything sort of below about 130, we're kind of cutting and boosting those different frequency ranges. And as you can see, the interface is a very nice, simple and intuitive way of working. So when we add one of these nodes, we simply just click to where we want it, drag it up or down, and you can see that'll automatically put that node in there. We get a little flyer box above it then that tells us exactly what we're doing, what frequency range we're hitting, what cue we're working on, and the percentage of the boost or the cut that we're working with. We can also then go in and shape that even more so. So we can click and you can see we've got a range of different options from bell curves and so on. We can also right click on the actual node itself. We can disable it. We can change the shape. So you can see again, we've got bell, low shelf and so on, notch. Or we can delete that point from there. So very quick and easy. If we're doing something along the lines of creating a boost or a cut, you can see that once I do that, it puts the cue in there based upon this sort of default value. Now all I need to do is take my mouse over that node and then I can use the scroll wheel up and down to increase or decrease the cue on there very quickly and very easily. So all quite simple and straightforward. I can also disable it, or I can click on the X to actually close it down and get rid of it completely. So a very intuitive interface. So also very quick and easy to work with. So let's take a listen to that now. Let's mix it back in with the actual live sound. So let's play that. So the nice thing there is we've cut out all that low frequency to muddy up the snare and just gives us the nice snap that'll allow us to help that sort of pop out in the mix. So you can see I can A/B it through this. So ultimately we end up with a very nice, simply sort of created EQ curve that is applied just to the decay rate. Now, like I say, we can also go in and we can edit the post EQ effect as well. So if we find there's frequencies in there that we don't necessarily like, they either sort of muddying up things or they're adding some unwanted acoustics to the audio, we can then come in and control that by using this yellow line, the post EQ. We can also control the scale that we're working on. You can see we're working with plus to minus 18 dB, but we can click on that and we can choose 9 or 30 dB, so we can extend or contract that depending upon how much we want to cut or boost. So we leave it at 18 on this one for now. And you can see that what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play this. Again, I'm going to go back to the full 100% wet mix, and I'm going to run that through, and I'm going to start to take a little look at adjusting some of the EQ on there. Now, I'm not really bothered about what I'm doing with this. It's more a case to demonstrate it than actually improve or make a detrimental effect to the audio. So let's try that now. So much the same way that we can EQ guitar frequencies to get rid of any of those horrible frequencies we don't like, we can do exactly the same inside this. And the beauty of it is that all of those EQ changes, whether that's post EQ or the decay rate EQ changes, are all inside the filter. So we can very quickly and easily just jump into this, see exactly what we've done, and tweak should we need to later on down the line when we start to put this together as a complete mix. So that's pretty much what we have available to us with the Fabfilter Pro-R Reverb plugin. Before I wrap this up, there's a couple of little things I want to go through which I think are noteworthy, but hopefully what this is going to do is going to give you a good idea of what this plugin offers you. So finally, let's take a little look at some of those things. One of the most important things we have available is we've got an undo and a redo, so we can quickly step back and forward. We've also got A/B, so if we want to check out different EQ and different settings, we can very quickly and easily switch over between the two. So let's just go over to my B settings, and you can see that shows me a different range of settings, which I can then go through and adjust to my heart's content and add new points in there. So we got a huge amount of control. Then I can just switch back to my first one, switch back and forth between the two, and I could audition both of those quite easily just by switching back and forth between the A/B. We've cut at the bottom. We've got the option for the input and output. We could also adjust the input pan, so we can control that to the left and right and so on, which again is really useful. We've got this little arrow in the bottom right hand corner that allows us to choose of 3 or 4 different sort of sizes of the interface. So you can see if I click on medium, that'll shrink it down a little bit, large, and we've got finally extra large, which is great if you're the kind of person that's using a 4K monitor, for example, or you're using a large screen. You don't need to have such a big interface. You've got the control over the sizes. But the thing I like probably the most about this is up at the top right hand corner, and that's the full screen option. So now with one click, we can put this to full screen and work without any distractions whatsoever, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And if, like me, you use a dual screen monitor setup, then you can easily have this plugin on one screen and your digital audio workstation on another, giving you a huge amount of workspace to work with. So that's a really great addition, and more plugin developers really should pay attention to this, because I think it's invaluable with higher resolution monitors coming out and getting cheaper all the time. So that wraps up our first impression of the Fabfilter Pro-R Reverb plugin. A special thank you to Fabfilter for sending this over to me to test it out and give you guys my honest opinion on what I think of it. If you're in the market for a reverb plugin and you're looking for something that gives you a lot of control, I highly recommend this plugin. It really is great to work with, and most of all, and most importantly, it's very, very simple to work with. You can quickly get great sounding results, and with all of the presets you have available to you, you have a great starting point, or a one-click effect to get exactly what you're looking for, even if you don't want to tweak it afterwards. So I definitely recommend checking out. Pop over to Fabfilter. All the links are in the description below. Check out, download the demo, see what you think of it for yourself, and if you like it, grab yourself a copy and start having great sounding reverb on your tracks. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the new content we add. If you have any comments, questions or feedback on this video or anything else on the channel, pop those in the comment section below. And until next time, happy mixing.